Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to Queen's for this, the third event in our Leaders Lecture Series. We're holding these events to give local party leaders an opportunity to set out their future vision for Northern Ireland in the run-up to the Assembly elections in May, and to provide a platform for students, staff and members of the public to put questions to them. There are other events scheduled in the series, so please do check the Queen's University Public Engagement events page for details, or follow us on social media at QUB Engagement. We'll be hearing from Doug Beattie, MLA, shortly, and those of you in the room will be given the chance to quiz him. There will be a roving mic for that purpose, and those of you watching online can also put questions using the slide link on our live streaming page. Please do just also visit the Public Engagement events page and follow the link to live stream. And actually, I realised that I should have introduced myself first of all. So can I first of all introduce myself as Margaret Topping, Pro Vice-Chancellor for Internationalisation here at Queen's. And it's my very great pleasure to welcome you all here. We have staff, we have students, and members of the public, as I've said, who are joining us online. But a very, very warm welcome to our guest lecturer this evening. By way of an introduction to our speaker, Doug Beattie took on the role of Ulster Unionist Party leader in 2021, saying at the point of announcing that he was standing for the role that he would be able to reach out to all people in Northern Ireland, regardless of their religion, sexual orientation or ethnicity, and promising a progressive and unifying agenda. Doug is MLA for Upper Bann, as well as being the UUP's Justice spokesman. He sits on the Assembly's Justice Committee and is also Deputy Chairman of the Committee for the Executive Office. Before moving into politics, Doug was a distinguished career soldier. He spent 34 years in the military and was awarded the Military Cross for bravery in combat. He's a keen advocate for ensuring the Armed Forces Covenant is applied in Northern Ireland to the same standard as it's applied in the rest of the United Kingdom. Doug remains a member of the Army Reserve, serving with 2 Royal Irish and holding the rank of Major. Doug has also published a number of memoirs, including An Ordinary Soldier, that followed his tour of duty in Afghanistan, and subsequently Task Force Helmand. In 2016, he published his first novel, Reaper. So with that military background, it's possible that local politics aside, Doug may have some insights into the current evolving situation in Ukraine. But without wishing to second-guess what Doug is going to talk to us about this evening, let me just welcome now our speaker, Doug Beattie, MLA, to give us an address. Doug.
If I could just start by saying that it's wonderful to be invited by Queen's University to be here to give the leaders' address, and I will give that in a moment. I've been to Queen's University on many occasions, and I'm very proud of this university in the heart of Belfast. Of course, I never went to university myself. I was never that lucky, having left school at the age of 16 with no educational qualifications. And I have lived my life to where I am now, still with no educational qualifications. So I'm a self-taught person. Not to say that's something to be proud of, but I stand as a person who believes that we can be what we all wish to be. As I stand to give the lecture, it's really important for me to first of all mention that my thoughts and my prayers and my hope goes out to the people of Ukraine, who are suffering the most unimaginable horror which is being inflicted on their country. I hope we have a peaceful resolution to what is happening in Ukraine, and I hope that we, this part of the United Kingdom, us here in Northern Ireland, continue to do what we have been doing over this last number of days to help the people of Ukraine, and that the United Kingdom stretch out the hand of friendship to bring those who need it, refugees, into this country and help in this awful time. It is true to say Europe is on the brink once more. and it could be on fire in the next number of days and weeks. And we must all pray that it does not. Northern Ireland is my home. It's where I live. It's where the history of who I am has been shaped. I love this place and I love its people. My home is within the United Kingdom. It is where my sense of belonging is. I am also Irish. I am also Northern Irish. That unique identity, layered in the manner it is, means that when I'm in Scotland, I feel at home, but uniquely Irish. The same can be said when I am in England or when I am in Wales. They are part of my home, but my Irishness breaks through, and I'm at ease with that. But what binds the thread of all of those identities is being a Unionist. I'm a Unionist in the widest sense of the word, not just within the boundaries of this part of the United Kingdom, but a Unionist bound to all corners of this United Kingdom, connected to all its people, its cultures, and its traditions. I believe in the Union. I am passionate about being British and the values all the relationships of the Union. Those relationships have made me who I am today. My unionism is as strong as anyone's, and that strength gives me the confidence to be a pragmatic unionist, not a dogmatic one. I believe that being intransigent has got us into the problems we face today. Those politics are not my politics. I want a more inclusive, creative, positive approach to change. I don't believe that the people of Northern Ireland have been well served by a political system that continues to emphasise fear and confusion over confidence and progress. We do not have power sharing. We have a power carve-up. The current political atmosphere is poisoned by those who seek to prevent progress because it presents the change they don't want. I want Northern Ireland to be a more inclusive society where collectively and together we work to confront social injustice, encourage diversity, and understand the importance of citizenship. We are part of a family with others: Scotland, Wales, and England. They are part of who we are, and we are part of who they are. But we also need good neighbours. We should cherish the special relationship we have with the Republic of Ireland and welcome the similarities we share with family, culture, identity, and sport. Our mutual interests are not something to fear, but to be welcomed. So why should we be apprehensive about building better and stronger relationships when they can bring us benefit? Better and more productive interactions between the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland, the United States, Europe, and indeed others will help us be seen as a more positive force for change, not only nationally, but internationally. We must therefore recognise that bringing influence depends on building positive relationships. At the end of last year, I visited New York and Washington. I brought a message of hope, not fear, that Northern Ireland is on the brink of success, not on the brink of disaster. I asked for nothing but friendship, and I made friends. Friends who wanted to hear the Unionist side of the story without the hype and negativity. It was a fresh message that had been missing for far too long, and it fed into the very union the United States envisages for itself. If we believe in inclusivity, then we must support the right of others to disagree with our views. Indeed, for diversity to thrive, disagreement is necessary. I am not talking about destructive disagreements based on sectarian hatred and hostility. I'm talking about the right to exercise another point of view, to accept that this requires tolerance. We may well disagree with others, but if we are strong in our identity and our convictions about who we are, then we will not be threatened by that difference. Indeed, that difference merely becomes part of who we are. Why should we be held back or frightened by it? I recognise the fear Unionists have about nationalism and a united Ireland. I also believe that a more inclusive society in Northern Ireland is the best way to make sure that does not happen. I have used the phrase, a union of people, ever since I became the Ulster Unionist Party leader. But it's not a strapline. It's a vision focused on people working together to make this place work, regardless of their religion, regardless of their colour, sexual orientation, culture or background. By making Northern Ireland work, by focusing on its people, we secure our place in the Union for many years to come. So let's focus on the economy to drive our health and education services, to help build more affordable social housing, make people more connected, create jobs so our young people wake up with a sense of purpose and go to bed at night with a sense of fulfilment. Let's create opportunity for everybody. This is what will secure the Union. People are the prize. They are not the commodity. This is the unionism I am so passionate about. Confident, positive and inclusive unionism is our protection. Negative, pessimistic and isolationist unionism is the antithesis to this. As part of this process, we must recognise how excluding those from our own communities from having a voice in social and political change is not acceptable. Our diversity is the richness of who we are. We should not and cannot deny a voice if we believe in being inclusive. The experiences, concerns and suggestions of others must be listened to. All sections of society should be involved in debates about what affects their lives and their ambitions. Politics should be the means by which we make those ambitions possible, and it must be delivered as close to the people as possible. Politicians are accountable to the public, and we ignore that at our peril. The stories and experience of those from the loyalist communities must be heard more, through positive voices, not negative voices. How can one talk about inclusivity if the voices of any section of society are excluded from shaping the society we can all benefit from? While women's voices are often unheard, loyalist women's voices are heard least of all. Whether about the Troubles, policy, or expressing views on contentious issues, and you know when you lose a page and you've got so many pages and you get scared now because I have no idea where I've got to be on this. But it allows me sometimes to go off script. And sometimes it's nice to go off script because then people can see the real passion that you have inside of you. And I have a passion for unionism, because unionism is not a dirty word. Unionism is about togetherness. It's about unity. And while others, people, nationalists or Republicans, believe that unity means something else, the uniting of this island, for me, the unity of people in Northern Ireland is what is absolutely key to me and important to me. And what we must try and do is reach out to understand the complexities of engaging with each other. Because in many cases within unionism, we have forgot how to engage. We have forgotten how to express our opinions. We look at everything now as something to fear. We don't look at anything that we can gain from it. if you dare challenge the argument of the protocol in any shape or form, you're a traitor, or you're a Lundy, or you're a rollover unionist, which is simply not true. Because instead of what you're trying to do is you're trying to look at the protocol and say, here is something I don't like, and here is something I think is doing us harm, but here is how we can engage with it and change it. It is not something to fear, it is something to create change with. I recently went to Brussels, just last week. And in Brussels, I went to the European Parliament, and I spoke to many MEPs while I was there. MEPs from the Czech Republic, from France, from Germany, from Croatia, Sweden. A fantastic, eclectic mix of people. And we explained our concerns about the protocol and how we can see fix and how we can see change. And they accepted it. They understood it. They supported us in that. And that lays the foundation for how we should be dealing with other people here in our own part of the United Kingdom, in Northern Ireland. When I was in Brussels, I met with the Irish ambassador to the EU and the UK ambassador to the EU, and both had a slightly different story to tell me, and I had a slightly different story to tell them, but I engaged with them regardless and made my point known, because people want to listen if you want to speak and be heard. I met Maros Sefcovic for 90 minutes. He offered me half an hour, but kept talking to me for 90 minutes. And he was impressive, and I explained the concerns that we have. Because for me, as the Ulster Unionist Party leader, more engagement, not less, is how I stand as that leader. The more people I engage, even those people who don't agree with me, is how we change minds. So we have less Lundys and more converts to unionism, which is not a dirty word. Confidence is what's important. Confidence, optimism, inclusion are all of the things that we need in order to create a better society here in Northern Ireland. And I'm absolutely convinced that if I can provide opportunity for people here in Northern Ireland through a strong economy and through education, through a good health service, through infrastructure, to give them those jobs and to give them that social housing, to allow them to feel that this is their home and they can get married and have children and a health system will look after them. If I can deliver that, they will happily stay here in Northern Ireland and want to keep the status quo. It is my protection as a unionist to maintaining the union that I love so much and that I spoke about. But of course, there are others who have a more negative voice, who are pessimistic in their outlook, who don't look for the good, who look for the bad, who don't look for hope, but they look for fear. And I have to fight against them on a day-to-day basis. But that's what's important, that we promote that confidence so people can see that there's a way out of the mess that we have found ourselves in. I'm asked very often, I'll probably get asked today, what are you going to do after the election? What's your plans? Get it down to the most minute detail about where we're going to go with Northern Ireland before the election has even been run. And of course I can understand why people ask. But it's never a place for me as a politician to tell everybody where I am going to go after an election when I don't know what the outcome of that election is going to be. I have to go into an election with ambition and confidence. I'm going to win it. I am going to be the First Minister. The moment I stop thinking that, the moment I stop saying that, is the moment people will see the chink in the armour. But of course I might not be. I might not be the First Minister. I may be something else. And then I have to look at what the outcome is, and I have to look to see what's important to make Northern Ireland better. And that is not looking for things that improve the standing of the Ulster Unionist Party, but it's something to improve the standing of the people of Northern Ireland. So let me give you an example. One of the things our party has been absolutely consistent on is about the programme for government. What is happening now is after an election, we all jump to nominate a First Minister or a Deputy First Minister and then all of the ministers, and then we go and argue about a programme for government. And because a party has already got a ministry, they only ever agree something that's good for them. So what we're saying is, after the election, we must agree the programme for government first. And once we've agreed that programme for government first, so we know what the collective outcomes are going to be, only then do we start nominating individual parties and individual ministers from those parties to the different locations. By doing that, we are promoting collaborative working. So what we don't have is a minister who's scared to make a decision because he's feared of making a decision that will reflect on his party. He should be able to make a decision for good or for bad, take risk or not take risk. And if it goes well, he should take the applause. And if it goes wrong, then it's the whole executive who should take responsibility for what went wrong. Risk is good. We have to take risk. And the problem at this moment in time with our Stormont is we don't take risk. We need an opposition. And we need an opposition desperately. Because an opposition isn't about just staying out of government. An opposition is about holding government to account. It's about lateral thinking, to look at things differently from what the rest of the government do. And it's a challenge function to challenge the government and give up different ideas. So when the government say we should do this way, then the opposition should say, no, we should do it this way. It should be seen as a positive. Opposition is a positive function of governments. And we don't have it, and we need it. And I think after the next election, there will be an opposition. And we have to look at what we have. Mandatory coalition isn't working. We need to see what we can do to make it work better, because everything that we do is about outputs. But as I stand here and I give you a lecture, and as I've gone off my notes and I don't know what I'm talking about in many of the things here, I say to you as the Ulster Unionist Party leader that I do want to work with absolutely everybody. But that doesn't mean that I have to accept the status quo. That doesn't mean I have to accept that just because I receive a certain vote, that is the direction I have to go. I have to look at what's best for Northern Ireland. And when I look at what's best for Northern Ireland, then that's the direction that I have to go. But I will do so with working with everybody and being constructive. Our focus is always going to be, as a party, on the economy and prosperity. So always going to be on that, because that's what will drive our society forward, and that's what will protect the union that I hold so dear. Others will have different agendas. Of course they will. Some people will look for power and they will just be interested in power at all costs, where I'm interested in a better, stable Northern Ireland. And once I get it, then we can start moving forward again. Building 1,800 social, affordable houses a year in Northern Ireland is not enough. We need to be more ambitious, and we need to build more. A skills agenda for our young people, so they have opportunity, so that their skills match the work that's coming in, that foreign direct investment. It will only come in if the skills match it. We need to stand on the world stage, Northern Ireland. We need to be more outward-looking. We need to be more inward-looking. We need to allow our young people to leave this place, go around the world, see how the world is being shaped, and then come back here and shape our society. This is what will create change here in Northern Ireland. This is what I want to create, a confident Northern Ireland, where its people are at ease with each other, where it doesn't matter if you call yourself a unionist, it's not a dirty word, where it doesn't matter if you call yourself a nationalist, it's not a dirty word, it doesn't matter if you call yourself something else, it's not a dirty word. We should be proud of what we are and what we're trying to achieve. And those people who are trying to create division, those people who are trying to create fear, those people who say that just because somebody else has a different opinion from me, I should hate them, then I turn my back on those people, because they do not have Northern Ireland's best interests at heart, either before an election, during an election, or after an election. The people who have Northern Ireland's best interests at heart are the people who will stand up in front of you and say, this is a difficult decision that I'm going to have to make. And then they make it for the good of the people and the place, and not for the good of the party. And we will see that in the weeks and months to come before the election, and then we will see that after the election as we struggle to get an executive up and running and a new government that can represent all of the people of Northern Ireland in a fair manner, so that we can drive our society forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doug, for a very passionate, very optimistic vision for Northern Ireland. We were joking before coming in that I promised I wouldn't shuffle Doug's notes when I put them on the lectern. I promise I didn't. But I think we can be very grateful for you going off-piste, as you said you might do earlier. So thank you very much for that.
Not deliberate.
We have probably about 25 minutes for questions, and we're really excited to have further discussion here. Can I perhaps use my privilege as host just to ask a first question before opening up to the floor? And we also have questions coming in online as well. Doug, I was very struck in what you said about how often you use the term inclusion and inclusive in terms of your vision for Northern Ireland. How do you aim to persuade the electorate to come along with you, to vote for you on issues that aren't neatly reducible to the unionism and nationalism binary?
Yes, and I think that's a really good question, and it's one of those answers that you have to give, which you can't necessarily define in a single, very simple answer, because what we all have to do is try and get people to want Northern Ireland to work. If people want Northern Ireland to work, that's the first question. Do you want Northern Ireland to work? If the answer is yes, I want Northern Ireland to work. Why do you want it to work? Well, I want it to work for its people. Because if Northern Ireland works, its people are in a better place than they are now. So what I'm trying to do is say to people out there that we can all work together. We can disagree with each other. We can disagree with each other vehemently on so many different issues. And there's many issues to disagree on, and there's many people will disagree on many of my points of view, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. But if we all have a single agreement, and a single agreement is that Northern Ireland as a place, if it works best for its people, then that's how we drive people along. And if people can have that very simple vision, and I call it a union of people, if people can have that very simple vision, then we can unite people together. There's very different about trying to unite two land masses, or trying to unite two halves of a whole in geographical terms. That's very different from trying to unite people together in a place. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to unite people, and that can be done through language, that can be done by understanding difference, that can be done by accepting when you got something wrong and then trying to fix it. It can be done by listening to other people's opinions. And I think that's what I have been trying to do. And one of the interesting things, I think, Margaret, is I've learned that from extensive travels around the world. And I know people say, yeah, you were in the military, everywhere you went, you were in uniform, so that's all you ever saw, but it's not. I saw all of the different parts of the world where I lived in them on a day-to-day basis, where I engaged with people not in uniform, where I understand and immerse myself in different cultures. And I learned from that just how much we can do if we just understand that simple premise: make Northern Ireland work, and people are the key.
Thank you. Thanks. Can we open up to questions on the floor? I think we have a roving mic. Yes, a question at the back.
Hi, Doug.
Martin McGuinness said once that we share power, the we being Republicans and Nationalists, with Unionists because we want to. Unionists share power because they have to. Now, given the ambiguity that you've expressed around potentially serving as a Deputy First Minister alongside a Sinn Féin First Minister, is Martin McGuinness's analysis right?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's a question that comes from a single direction, which is sometimes slightly unfair that you look at these things from a single direction. Because let's be absolutely clear, my party works with Sinn Féin and other parties within the executive. We work with them within the Assembly. We work with them within Assembly committees. We work with them within all party groups. We work with them in council. We work with them in council committees. We work with them in the floor in the chamber of council. We work with Republicans and Nationalists in every single aspect and facet of life here in Northern Ireland. So we work with them. So to boil it down to a binary, you will not serve as a Deputy First Minister to a Sinn Féin Minister, I'm going to be absolutely clear to you. I don't even know if I will serve with anybody as the First Minister, if I'm the First Minister, if I don't get fundamental changes to certain things that are happening here in Northern Ireland, not for the benefit of me, but for the benefit of Northern Ireland. One of the worst things that we ever did here in Northern Ireland was change the Belfast Good Friday Agreement in 1998, an agreement that was agreed by the people of Northern Ireland and ratified by those people. And it should have stayed. But we changed it in 2006, 2007, and we have made it that every election now is a sectarian head count. The whole point about 1998, it was about true power sharing. And as soon as we went to the first past the post that we see from the St Andrews Agreement, we absolutely destroyed that. So one of the things I would say before I work with anybody in the executive office is we need to get back to the factory settings of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement.
Thank you, Doug. Have other questions from the floor? Yes, gentleman in the back.
Hi, Doug. You've placed a lot of emphasis on inclusivity, particularly around women, but many women will be alarmed by many of your sexist comments on Twitter. So my question is, in an era of Me Too, how can it be appropriate for a misogynist to be a candidate for First Minister?
And you know what? You make a fair point. I come out very quickly after that. These are things that happened 10 years ago. I was living and working in a different environment. That's not an excuse. I don't sit here to ever make an excuse, but it was 10 years ago when I was living and working in a different environment for where I am now. Since I became the party leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, I have actually worked tirelessly to bring more young females into politics and into the party. And therefore all I have done is apologise for everything that I may have said previously. But that's all I can do, is apologise and try and make amends. It's up to others to decide whether or not they can give forgiveness. So as I apologise to you, then it's up to you to decide whether or not I can give Doug Beattie forgiveness. But all I can do is apologise for what happened and what I said 10 years ago.
Thanks, Doug. We have a question coming in from our online audience. Question, what steps will you take to try and address the lack of trust between the voting public and politicians, both in the run-up to the election and afterwards?
By being honest. I think honesty and integrity are the things that's missing from politics. The problem that we've got in politics is people are now only ever looking to the next election. They're only ever looking to see what can I do at the next election and how can I retain power or get into power. And of course that makes sense. We have to do that. That's what political parties have to do. In order to be able to change society, you have to be the ones in power. But I believe we need to look beyond the next election. I believe we need to look beyond the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years and 20 years. We need to look to see how we can change society. And I think that can only be done by politicians who are open and honest with a degree of integrity. And if they make mistakes, as my friend pointed one out to me, that those same politicians stand up and said, I made a mistake and apologise for it. The moment they start hiding from their own mistakes, then you know that they do not have that honesty honesty that you need in a politician. So I've said this all along, Margaret, is that I will be open and honest in every single thing that I do, and I've maintained that. That doesn't mean I won't make mistakes, quite the opposite. Of course I will make mistakes, but when I make mistakes, when I get something wrong, I will front up to those mistakes. But if we want the people to trust us, then we have to be open and honest with them, and that's what I intend to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, question here at the front, and then I think one at the back.
Hi, Doug. My name is Emer Smith. I'm currently researching at Queen's as a master's student, and I'm researching the right to self-determination in the Good Friday Agreement. I've never heard you speak in person, but I have to say that it's been a really good experience for me to come in and to listen to someone whose views are different than my own, and I really appreciate how genuine you are when you deliver that, and I can see how passionate you are about Northern Ireland. I'm also extremely passionate about Northern Ireland. I don't think that the future of Northern Ireland and a potential unity referendum, just discussing that, are mutually exclusive. I would love to hear a unionist argument for remaining in the union to persuade me as a nationalist why it actually is a better option to remain in the United Kingdom. I'm not averse to that or opposed to that. I just think that at some point it's quite likely that we will have a unity referendum based on the legal precedent that we have and the Secretary of State triggering that. So I would like to know why is it that we don't hear, for me, sort of the way that the nationalist movement is rising up at the civic level to persuade people to vote in a unity referendum. Why are we not hearing that from the unionist community? Because I would love to.
I think you make a really, really good question. I'm going to start by saying something that people need to absolutely understand, that it is absolutely valid for anybody who wants to campaign for United Ireland. That is valid, and we should absolutely accept that. In the same way, it's absolutely valid that people should be able to campaign for a United Kingdom. And we should all be allowed to make our opposing arguments in regards to that. I did mention it in the speech, I think, before I lost my pages, that we shouldn't be afraid of other people's differing opinions. Quite the opposite. We should embrace them and embrace the thought that you have, and that is that the argument is not made for a United Kingdom, but the argument is being made for a United Ireland. I suppose there is a degree within unionism that we do have a status quo, and if we have a status quo, let's not upset the status quo by getting into the mix and designing a United Ireland for other people. So, if I get myself into a debate about a United Ireland and somebody says to me, yeah, but what if we fix this United Ireland? And I says, yeah, that would work. And then they tick that box and they move on to the next one. You suddenly find that I, as a unionist, am designing a United Ireland for nationalists. So there's a fear within that. But I think you make a fair point. If any of you go on to the University of Liverpool Irish Studies site, you will see that those arguments are made really, really well on there by both nationalists and by unionists. Me as a unionist, I think I touched on it slightly when I was talking, and this sense of being Irish. And people still laugh. They think I use that as a line. I'm being absolutely clear with you. I've always, throughout my life, felt Irish, and I'm clearly British as well. And my greatest argument for the union is the case that no matter where I've lived, and I've lived throughout the United Kingdom, in England, Scotland and Wales, I've lived in all of those places and felt really at home. But my Irishness was still very unique and shone through. Everybody kind of uses the argument about, yeah, we have to stay in the United Kingdom because we've got the NHS. That's a failing argument now. That's not good enough. We need to find something better than that. But I guess to answer your question directly, you will find unionists are slightly reticent to get into discussions about a United Ireland because they don't want to design it for those people who want it, because it's against everything that we believe. I think that's a fear there, so therefore it's a fair question that you've just asked. But I think it's really important to say that whether you want a United Ireland or whether you want a United Kingdom, these are fair aspirations that we're all allowed to have.
Thank you. I think there was a hand up towards the back on that side. Am I right?
Hello. Doug, it's been very interesting for me listening to you over a number of years, because you're one of the most prominent unionists who has pitched and publicly spoken about the context of your identities, multifaceted identities, embracing right across these islands, this archipelago. And I've listened to the last question there from Emer and your answer to it. In your talk, you kind of several times you pitched that the most important thing and the most important need in Northern Ireland to serve people was actually to the economy, was actually that the economy is what does everything, most importantly for the large mass of the people. And it seems to me that an aspect of unionism and an aspect of the economy that you haven't addressed there is, how is the link for us with Britain, being part of the UK, how is that either historically or in the future serving the economic needs of people in the 6 counties here in Northern Ireland? Because the history of the last, it doesn't matter how long you go back, the last 100 years, the last 60 years, the last 30 years, is that the 26 counties, the economic performance is far, far outstripping that of Northern Ireland. In fact, it's far, far outstripping the economic performance of Great Britain. So why you say that fundamentally the economy is the most important thing, but underpinning that is a determination to retain the link with Britain, to continue to be a unionist? I don't understand the dispassionate logic in that, because you do strike me as a person that is prepared to ask questions others haven't asked before. And there is a degree of rationality in your approach. And the difficulty for me is I don't understand why, when one sees the economic performance of Ireland so much stronger, massively much stronger, it's not just marginal, it's massively stronger than that of Britain. Why and how is there still an economic preference to stay with Britain?
It's a really interesting question. Can I quickly ask you a question back while you've got the mic there in front of you? Can I just ask, would you class yourself as a Republican nationalist?
Yeah, well, funny, technically a Republican in that I don't like monarchy, but more, in this context, more nationalist.
Yeah.
I mean, my politics would be very much SDLP.
Yeah, so I guess the point I was going to ask, and I didn't want to presume, I guess the point I was going to ask is that if Northern Ireland suddenly become a major powerhouse economically, and the Irish Republic was to start to fall by the wayside and actually start to go down, and the cost of living, and there is a real issue in the cost of living in the Irish Republic, but if it started to crumble slightly as we saw previously, would that change your views? Would you suddenly become a unionist? I don't think you would. I think that the point is that everything ebbs and flows within a country. There's an ebb and flow within the United Kingdom where we're at the crest of a wave at one minute and then we're dipping down at another at the next time. It's exactly the same if you look at Ireland. Ireland have not always been at that crest of a wave. Sometimes it was, that Celtic tiger was suffering whenever they had to get a loan from the United Kingdom. So everybody ebbs and flows as far as economics is concerned. But sometimes there is an ideology, I think, and I would not expect any Republican or nationalist to say, I'm a unionist now because Northern Ireland is doing extremely well economically. Of course they wouldn't. Well, it's exactly the same for me. You couldn't expect me as a unionist to say, well, do you know what, Northern Ireland isn't doing too well, Irish Republic's doing fantastic, I'm going to become a nationalist. It doesn't work that way. Those identities are identities which are all about the rough and the smooth of the country which you call home, and I call the United Kingdom home. This part of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, is my home, and yes, there's an ideology to that, but I think we all have that ideology within us. United Kingdom has a huge economy, 5th, 6th largest in the world. Northern Ireland needs to be able to latch on to that. When I say I think we need to promote the economy, That is to make sure that we work on the economy to make a better life for the people who are here in Northern Ireland. And I keep saying I'm focusing on the people here. That's the important thing, because that economy does drive a good health service, it does drive good infrastructure, it does drive good education, it will create jobs, it will create housing. And if you have all of those things, you have a happier people. They have an opportunity. They have the opportunity to leave the country, then come back to it again and be able to set up home. So there's an ideology to part of the answer that I gave earlier, that actually if you ask it of yourself, you will have the same ideology. And that is, if the Irish Republic's economy suddenly collapsed and Northern Ireland was to be buoyant, you wouldn't become a unionist.
Thank you, Doug. We have another question coming in from our audience online. Since Brexit, the choice between a potential United Ireland and the UK has become a choice between belonging to the EU and not belonging to it. And the question asked is, what advantage do you see to Northern Ireland remaining outside the enriching context of the EU?
I voted Remain. My party did not think that Brexit was going to be a good thing. Even 2 days before the referendum, I think our MEP Jim Nicholson stood up and says, look, if we exit, there's going to be customs posts in Belfast and Larne, and he was laughed at. Mike Nesbitt, who was then the party leader, was at the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee and talked about the instability if we leave the European Union. So I say that because it's important to understand that we never wanted to leave in the first place. But you know what? It was a free referendum, and the people of the United Kingdom voted to leave, and we have left, and we have to make the best of what we have now, and that means working in a very different way. It doesn't mean we've stopped being Europeans. Of course we haven't. We're still all Europeans. We're just not part of the European Union. But what it means is we have to work better with the European Union. We need to get away. I mean, if we talk about poke in the eye politics here in Northern Ireland, there's poke in the eye politics between the UK and the EU at the minute, where they're not trying to work together. And I'm an advocate of collaborative working. Things have changed. We just need to see how we can make ourselves better and more prosperous in the situation that we find ourselves, because we're not going back into the European Union anytime soon. And the argument is that people will vote for a united Ireland because they want to get back into the European Union is a fair one to be made, but the evidence isn't there to say that the vote is there. Then that's why I'm focusing on something more local.
Thank you. Question from the floor. Yes, the front.
Hi, Doug. I think, having listened to you now and previously, I think great on the big picture. I'm sold on the big picture, sort of vision stuff. But I think to gain my vote at the election, I'm going to have to hear more about what the Ulster Unionist Party's detailed policies are on specific areas. I've been working for the Confederation for Health and Social Care for the last 7 months, and obviously Robin Swan's very well respected in that area. But going into the next mandate, there's going to be lots of difficult decisions going to have to be made in terms of service reconfiguration, all the rest of it. So what are the Ulster Unionist Party's specific policies in this area, and does the Ulster Unionist Party still propose merging all of the different health trusts into a single health trust, or have you ditched that policy?
Yeah, and look, you talk about something that we will have to outline in our manifesto. Our manifesto launches at the end of this month, funnily enough. So before the election, that manifesto will be sitting there, so you'll be able to delve into it in huge detail. But if you look at health and you look at Robin Swan as our health minister, I think he's been an exceptional health minister. I think he's kept politics out of the health service as the health minister, and he's already brought in many different things to try and deal with the health service, to deal with the waiting lists by trying to organise elective surgery 7 days a week instead of just the 5 that it's happening now, about having centres of excellence. He's brought in the mental health champion and put resources into that. So he's done all of this, and he's done all of this under the confines of COVID. So in many cases, all of those things that you talk about, all those things which are game-changing about our health service that Robin Swan has sitting there and is trying to promote, have been held down by COVID. Until COVID's out of the way, you'll not see them coming forward. So we need absolute change. And Robin Swan has brought absolute change, but his policies just haven't broken through yet because of COVID. But that's slowly changing. So saying to people that you can be treated quicker, but you have to travel further, is something he's already done. He's already said. His policies on reducing those waiting lists is already sitting there, ready to go. It's already being employed now, but it's been held back by COVID, and the same with mental health. But you're absolutely right. It's okay giving that wave-topping stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I sat here and talked about every single policy, then we'd be here all day. I have to give that wave-topping stuff. Our manifesto will outline exactly what we will be looking at. And if you look at the likes of social housing, for example, we think that the number of social houses built throughout Northern Ireland, affordable social houses sitting at 1,800 a year, is absolutely pitiful. We need to double that if we're going to help the people here in Northern Ireland. Or Disability Access Fund. So we're looking at having disability access funds and seeing how that can work here in Northern Ireland. So we can delve down in all of the policies at the various different levels, but the manifesto is the opportunity you will have to take hold and scrutinise, including our green economy paper, which is already out there, which you can see online. So there's lots of things there, but I absolutely get the point that you're saying. I'm talking at the higher level, but we need to delve into the weeds.
Thank you, Doug. We have another question that's come in on the chat. You did mention the events in Ukraine at the beginning, and we have a viewer online who's asked, what is your analysis of the situation? First part of the question. And the second part is, do you think now is the time for Ireland to waive its commitment to neutrality?
I think the situation in Ukraine is grim. It's far grimmer than people realise or people know. My background would have told me, and there's other people who I know in this room who will know just how grim it is and how difficult it is to try and deal with it. And my briefing from NATO just showed how bad things are likely to get, and the dangers that we find ourselves in, that we are as close to a major, serious NATO-Russia conflict than we have ever been. We are as close to a nuclear engagement now than we have ever been. And I'm not talking about ICBMs, I'm not talking about intercontinental ballistic missiles. I'm talking about tactical nuclear weapons, on the battlefield nuclear weapons. I'm talking about thermobaric weapons being used. I'm talking about cluster munitions, which are absolutely horrific in the way they're used. We're talking about munitions that can kill everybody in a building and not destroy a single stone, or drop a building on top of all of the people who are in it. We are in the worst place imaginable. President Zelensky is doing an incredible job rallying his people, and we must all applaud him for that. But there comes a time where he's going to have to say, Ukraine has been lost so far, and we would need him to get out of the country. Because if Ukraine is to continue fighting after occupation, it needs its government in exile, making sure that they continue that fight. And that's where we are, and that's where we could end up being. So it is absolutely a grim situation that we find ourselves in, something we did not think we would find ourselves in since the 1945. But that's the direction that we're heading now. And I said to people today that, fuel prices could be the least of our worries in the days, weeks and months to come. Ireland has a proud history of being a neutral country. I have served with the Irish Defence Force in operations in Bosnia and in Kosovo. I've had my service personnel serve with them in Mali and many other places. They are first class military, but their neutrality no longer makes sense. They need to really think about how they protect themselves and how they protect their citizens. And I think they need to rethink whether or not they should or could become part of of the NATO alliance. There's a lot of talk, and people will know this, or maybe they don't know this, but UK fighter jets actually protect Irish airspace to a degree. But I will just caveat that. They do that also to protect the UK airspace. It's not just because I love Ireland, I'm going to protect them. They look after ourselves as well. But every single day that we're sitting here, even now as I speak to you, Ireland, the UK, the US, all over Europe, there is a cyber war taking place. There is a cyber war taking place which can be just as lethal as what's happening in Ukraine at the minute. So Ireland, I think, should consider its neutrality and the manner in which it is a neutral country. And that doesn't mean it suddenly becomes a militaristic country, but I think it just needs more spending on its defence.
Thank you very much, Doug. I'm conscious of the time. If there was one very brief question, if you promise it's a very brief one. Okay, this will be our last question then from the audience this evening, and then we'll draw to a close.
Doug, thanks for very positive exposition of your unionism tonight, but I think you just touched on the backdrop that that unionism is sitting against, with Putin possibly starting, a conflagration across Europe. Doesn't it mean that the sort of local conflicts that we have really pale into insignificance, and questions about protocol should be really reassessed? And the likes of the DUP who have stepped away from government maybe should step up to the plate and get back into government, so the 300 billion that's sitting there to be spent on behalf of the people of Northern Ireland should actually be spent.
I think that's a fair question that you've just asked. I would say two things to that, of course. Is all politics is local. I'm a local politician, I'm a local party leader, and I have to represent and look after the people here in Northern Ireland. And things affect them. The conflict in Ukraine is affecting people here in Northern Ireland. Look at the hike in fuel prices. It's huge. It literally is getting to a stage where people can either heat or eat, where people can't afford to put fuel in their car to get to work. We could drive our economy to a standstill if we don't deal with this issue. And one of the issues that we have, and I raised this with Maros Sefcovic, and I wrote to him on Saturday actually, and he replied to me within hours, and that was very heartening. One of the issues that we have is because of the protocol, the Chancellor of the Exchequer cannot reduce the VAT on fuel throughout the whole of the United Kingdom. He can reduce it in England, Scotland and Wales, but can't reduce it in Northern Ireland. Now, that's a fact of the protocol. But there's a way around that, and I spoke to Maris and I said, look, can we do something? And he was very open to try and fix that problem. And I spoke to Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, likewise to the UK's ambassador to the EU, to bring this up this week to try and come up with something that they will be able to reduce the cost of VAT on fuel that will affect lots of people here in Northern Ireland. So the point you make is a valid point. Should we just put our issues to one side while we concentrate in Europe that could be burning very, very soon? That's a fair point. But I also have to remember that the people in this room and elsewhere live their lives, and I have to look after them as well. So we can't just stop doing what we do, because if we stop doing what we do, we're actually saying to Putin, what you've done is stopping me helping the people here in Northern Ireland, and I wouldn't do that ever.
Thank you very much. Our time is unfortunately drawing to a close, so before we just wrap up, could I just first of all thank our online audience for their engagement in this evening's events, and also our audience here in the room for their questions and for their interaction this evening with Doug. There are more of our leaders' lectures that will be happening over the coming weeks, so if you have found this evening's event to be a kind of interesting and stimulating one, please do engage with us on some of the future events, and details of all of those are found on our website, but you can also follow at QUB engagement on Twitter. My final job is to thank Doug Beattie for his lecture this evening, and for also, I think, what were very frank, very passionate and very optimistic answers to the questions that came both from our online audience and for people here present. So I'm thanking our audience, but can you also now join me in thanking Doug Beattie also for his interventions?